Hi, this is Patrick. This is my first video showing how I'm working in Nuke. The thing that we're going to do today is a video in another video, and we're going to pin the video to a moving object inside the main video. This is part of the later part of a class, Introduction to Compositing, that I'm teaching. So the final thing that we're doing would look something like that. So a girl holding a photo frame, and we have a video of a girl going inside the water, and and it looks like it's part of the frame that she's holding up. So another version of this that I already did in the class, somewhat similar. Okay, and the resolution that I'm aiming to go for is 1920 by 1080, and that's a full HD. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have. So in footage, I have a canvas texture that you can look it up yourself. You can take any kind of canvas texture which I overlaid on the video to make it look like the video is happening beneath the canvas texture. And then here I have candidates of frames of videos that can be pinned onto things and replace and have like pictures and videos happening in another image. Okay, and notice that some of the formats are landscape, right? It's different from the final format that we want. So this is the final image, the final video format that I'll be working with, and you have to reformat it to the landscape orientation. Okay, and the other thing to note that is that for every video, if you're not working in a pipeline where the video is professionally shot and delivered to your workstation so that you can work with it already, you have to acquire your own video footage. So whether or not you buy it or it's free for use, I always try to include and save the URL, the link to the web page where I acquire it. This is for in future if I need another resolution or another format for that video, or I want to revisit some legal implications of using that video, I can go back to it. Alright, and then in my other folder I have picture-in-picture, which is the inner footage, what to show inside the frame. So I have some of them are interesting, and you can see that it's different formats. Some are long, so we have to decide how to frame them up and which area and which portion of the image to show inside our frame. Okay, and this was the one that I eventually got to use. So you can see that the format is different also, so you have to imagine and plan for which areas should be inside the frame. Let's go ahead and do that. Have a read node inside Nuke. So let's view that. So you see that it's longish. It's 2160 by 4096 in resolution, and I have decided that it's going to be full HD. Yeah. So what I did that I kind of regret now is that I reformatted and output a version of this. Let me show you this woman holding a back frame. So I have a sequence here, and every one of them is 1080 by 1920. So it's a kind of a rotated HD, where the long side is still 1920, and then the shorter side is 1080. So if you know your formats and you know that my final format is going to be 1920, you know that some scaling of the image has occurred, so it's 1920 that's scaled up from 1080. Okay, so I've already prepared my files like that, so I'm gonna continue and work off that. So what I did also was that that you can see that the source video is kind of like, if I double click here, I can see that the source is from frame 1 to 574, and in my sequence I just took about 150 frames. So I had to decide from this video, from the source, where I should take 150 frames off. Okay, so and the source video being an MPEG-4 video is a bit hard to, and because of the incoming resolution is pretty hard to play it back in real time. I'm gonna play it a bit and cache it. So it looks like this frame from 50 to 150 was conveniently taken from and numbered as such. Okay, all the way up to 150, which interestingly was the girl lifting the image and covering her own face, and so that I thought that was interesting. So 50 to 150, and what I did was I did a reformat, right, and I write it out, reformat. So and that new format was to be 1080 by 1920. So I did 1080 by 1920, and so I give it a HD vertical or something. Okay, so then I click OK, and I chose this do I have that HD vertical? So that became right from, so there were some things that got cropped off, and I might have, because this whatever that got cropped off right on top it's kind of a solid green of the wall paint, so I might have transformed the image and pulled it down a little bit. Right, so to transform in tenths. So just now I was just scrubbing in the ones digit, so just add a 1, and then I'll alternate and then left mouse scroll, and I'll be moving the image in tenths. Okay, so what I do here is just to make sure that I have enough so that I don't leave blank areas. So what I'm just doing is kind of aligning the image to that last to the bottom edge of the frame while my reformat takes place, and now it cuts off a little bit more from the top, right, while the bottom remains kind of with the frame. I'm sure there's a better way for doing this, okay, for those of you who've worked a long time in Nuke. So tell me about how you're doing all these kind of things, how you can make it better, you know, the workflow. I'm always looking for that. So you write out from 50 to 150, so I can set my frame range to 50 and 150, and I write out a sequence of this. Okay, so and then the next thing that now that I've decided on the girl inside the water, do your read node. For some reason I can't do a drag and drop. I know you're supposed to be able to do that. Okay, so full body in the water. So that's a different format as well, but what I did is just to reformat it into a full HD. Within that 150, when I double click this, I know that there's 520 frames. So what I want to do is to kind of look for interesting areas in the video where she's doing interesting things. So I think the biggest change was when she went into the water from above to beneath. So that was interesting. I'm going to add or offset the video by 20, and let's see. So at the end of the video she should be in the water, so 120. Let's see. So that she's already in the water, and freaks me out when she looks at me like that, actually. So let's try 200. Okay, she went back up again, so maybe 150, and she's still underwater. So kind of getting a feel of you know, that the girl here in the same timeline of from 50 to 150, right? She's going to raise her canvas, and then maybe over here she's still raising her canvas. Yeah, so let's take a look at that one. So that's covered her face already. So let's after the reformat, let's see at what point. So maybe after the canvas replaces, and then we see the woman, and then she dips her head into the water. Maybe that's so you want to kind of at 160, 170. I want her to begin dipping into the water. So I'm going to pull back on the right. So maybe 110, where we still see her eyes. 115. Okay, so that's 110. So that's some of my workflow when I'm doing that. Okay, so then so she goes in, and then at the end we see her eyes. Maybe that's not such a good idea. I want her to kind of, I don't know, come back up a little bit. 20, 130. So let her have a little bit of going in and recovering a little bit before the shot ends. That's my aim right now. Yeah, so she comes back up a little bit. So 50. Looks like she went. Yeah, so that the whole water envelopes the frame, so that might be good. 160. She's beginning to lose. We're beginning to lose her. She's going up the water, so maybe 155. Yeah, so not a very nice framing, unfortunately. But let's say I'm happy with that. Write this one out, and you know, again, 4096 is we've already reformatted that to 1920, which is good. But going back up a little bit, you can see, let's go scrub through that whole range, and we see that we don't want the same thing to happen to the first picture, where there's interesting things, but because of that reformat, you can see that if we accidentally cropped off something. Okay, so resize to the height. So when we resize to width, we kind of keep the width and touch the edge of the new format, but we kind of lose some information on the height. So what I want to do in this case is to keep the height, and I don't mind throwing away some of the width, because I know that in my painting, right, it's going to be kind of a narrow painting, and I'm going to throw even more things away in the process of fitting that image into the frame, right? So I rather have my height and have a bit more information kept instead of black bars at the top. Okay, so with this, that was my workflow when I wrote out this. So you'll see that I have this woman submerging full body, and I have 150 frames of that as well. So this kind of this is not a pre-comp, but is a converting my MP4 into and of larger resolution into a smaller and a more manageable resolution, and they become individual frames, which may help in my caching, in my reading, and in my updating, rather than Nuke diving into this MP4 and kind of search through the bytes to get to the correct frame. Yeah, so it really depends how efficiently a decoder does this to hunt for a frame in a single file, a monolithic MP4 or MOV. It really depends on how good the encoder is arranging that data structure of the movie inside. Okay, some of the formats and the encoders are meant for fast random access. Some are meant for serial streaming, right? Your mileage will vary, but in this case we want to convert all of them into individual frames, so when Nuke needs that frame, it can just go in and point to that file, right? So I'm going to quickly save this. Okay, and I'll just load in, and then I'll just load in, start with a new thing, corner pin, frame sequence, 50 to 150, and I'm gonna set my settings to 50, 150, and the format is gonna be HD 1920 by 1080. Okay, so that's my kind of hinting at the final output, what's it gonna be. Okay, but when I read it in, it's the inverted HD. I'm gonna read in the woman in the water, picture in picture, and submerging full body. And again, it is from 50 frame to 150. So everything's kind of aligned properly. I don't need to worry about that area of the project. Okay, then going into this, we want to start tracking the corners of the image. So how corner pinning works, it requires 4 trackers to describe what position the corners of the image are. With that, it will fit and warp the incoming video or image to the position of these 4 corners. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to do a tracker node. Okay, tracker node, and you will see a interface like that. Then I also want to do a corner pin node. Okay, corner pin. So what that corner pin 2D node is going to do, it's going to be applied to this image that we're going to distort and warp into that main image. Okay, so that's the configuration. In this tracker node, we're going to create 4 trackers to describe the 4 corners, and the data from the 4 corners is going to drive this, so that the corner pin has like 4 corners. It knows how to deform and warp the image. So why I created this corner pin node in tandem to this tracker 1 is to show the number ordering of the corners. Okay, so this is actually number 1. Okay, this is actually number 2. This is number 3 and number 4. So it's not intuitive to me. If I were to do something like that, I would do top left, top right, bottom left, and bottom right, but that's not how it's going to be. So this is the way we need to track our trackers. We need to track tracker 1 to the left bottom, and then the right tracker 2 to the right, bottom right, and tracker 3 to the top right, and tracker 4 to the top left. Okay, so I had to do this all over again, and because I didn't get the order right. You can do it in the wrong order, but you end up confusing yourself. Later on, we'll need to take the tracker 1 to connect to number 1, tracker 2 to connect to number 2. So if your tracker 1 was actually is number 3, then you'll have a problem. So first thing, add a tracker. So first tracker, right? What you want to do is to grab this tracker, and you'll see that you have a magnifier. So while you're hovering over, grab this tracker, hovering over the feature. So for example, if you want to track this corner, this corner becomes the feature to track to. So you actually want to remember our order of the tracker: 1, 2, 3, 4. So you want to grab it and go to number 1, which is the bottom left. So it gets a bit finicky at when you try to grab it from a distance. So you want to go close up. You want to go close and grab somewhere in between. When you grab one of the edges, you'll see this. Okay, you see one of the points and the handles, so you don't want to reach for any one of that. If you grab for the center, yeah, I think most of the time it works, but you kind of, if you grab somewhere else, it goes into becoming deselected, so you want to select it again, and you see that 2 squares, so you kind of want to grab the center and place it where you want it to track. So the tracking happens with pixel colors, so this is actually the best scenario you can hope for, which is high contrast. You can see the tracker is going to recognize this pattern, and every frame is going to kind of try and keep itself in the center of where this pattern. Okay, so that's what the first box means. It's going to keep matching this pattern, this kind of configuration of vertices, right? So black forming an L, and then a white area on the top quarter. Okay, and the second, it means it is the search area. It will look for this pattern. If it cannot find it within this search area, it will kind of drift off. It will fail. It will look for the next closest match that it thinks will be the pattern. Okay, so if you have very fast moving images, movement, and you can see that if the feature goes out of the search area, you had better increase in one frame, like every frame. If it jumps so far that it's outside, you have to increase the search area in that direction. So most of the time the shot is mostly like panning left or right, or tilting top or down. So if it's moving left or right, you kind of get more movement of you want to search more in the left and right area. So in this case, nothing's really happening. The girl is slowly raising the painting frame. So you kind of want to maybe add a little bit of the top down area, and she's not really moving the frame left or right, right? So that's our configuration. And very bad idea. I started from the very last frame, so I'm gonna show you how to track backwards, all right, instead of forward, but we can do forward for the next point. Okay, so now that we're on the last frame, you can see that if you have done any keyframing before, you'll see that a keyframe constitutes to a blue tick in frame 150, so I get blue. All right, so what you want to do is proceed carefully. So you see this. So these this whole interface came out from together with this tracker node. All right. So what you want to do is to track previous and track one frame. Okay. And click it a few times. You want to see it kind of follow the footage. Okay. Once you're confident that it's kind of staying in the center, okay, if at some point it drifts and deviates away from the center, like this one, okay, good one. So I forward my frame back to that last point where it's correct, yeah, and then now I go back to this one. So you see that the keyframe hasn't been already added, right? So we see it kind of drift off. What we can do is we can grab this and pull it back, or okay, so that's one way, grabbing this and putting it where it ought to be. So I'm going to undo that. The second way I can do that is to reach directly for that magnified area and pull this guy in to where it needs to be. Okay, so there are two methods of doing that. The next thing that we can do, right, is actually to use your number pad to nudge the point around. Okay, so I'm reaching for my 2468 keys in my number pad on my keyboard. You can do shift 2468, I think. Is it shift? Shift will make big movements, and control 2468 on your number pad while you're holding that control key will give you very fine movement and adjustments. So this is the kind of control you have. So once you've done that, you're kind of updating that keyframe, and then you can continue on your way to click. I love frame by frame, and then you can see that everything's fine until this frame 100. Okay, and I'm gonna put it back again, and using the arrow keys to nudge my frames. Well, as much as accurate as you can get. Okay, and then if you're really happy with that, you can hit this track to start. That means it's gonna track backwards, and what we were doing was single frames, right? So if I click this, it kind of keeps going and until it reaches the start of the frame. So just now we were at frame 100. Now that it's done everything, I'm gonna kind of quickly step through the frames to see whether there are any discrepancies where it goes really in large amounts of deviation from where it should be. Okay, it looks like it's okay, but just in case, for example, if something goes wrong here, maybe at some point maybe it deviated and I want to fix it, what I can do is you go to, so that invalidates all frame 81 and before, right? So what I can do is 81 and before, I can click this guy. So that's like deleting all keyframes from 81 and before. So that kills all the keyframes, and then from here you can kind of nudge it. You can kind of select this and do the nudge it a little bit. Oh, so that was wrong. Okay, 81, nudge it a little bit. Compare it with the previous frames, yeah, and then continue to track maybe 1 or 2 more frames until you're quite confident that it's getting it, and then you can continue to track it in reverse and finish the entire sequence. Okay, so so then now we see some kind of popping here, right? So want to fix that a little bit. Another pop. Okay, so that's just going through the workflow. So I'm not going to be very picky on the quality. So that's just the first tracker. Once you're done with it, you want to turn off the E, so you'll see this tracker 1 and keep it and named as track 1. Okay, because remember we have 4 corners and we want to kind of have matching names so that we know which tracker fits into which, and don't reorder the name. So this E means kind of in edit mode, and where it will kind of evaluate and try and figure out where the tracker is. I think when you're done with it, I think I'm not very sure what this E does, but yeah, I try to turn it off or something. Means like you're done editing with it or something. Yeah, please read the documentation. So next, you want to add a second track. So remember, it's counterclockwise from bottom left. So maybe I'll just expand it a little bit and pull it to, and using my magnifier. So you see now whatever I'm doing, I didn't need to zoom in a lot. Well, of course, in the end I still needed to, but and then remember it's mostly moving up and down. So you want to kind of increase it a little bit in the vertical direction. Part of the reason why why there needs to be a search area is because sometimes the whole image is too huge and too big, and to search for that pattern across and compare it with all the other pixels is just simply impractical. But also, if I had another frame with a black corner, I wouldn't want this I wouldn't want the tracker to mistakenly detect the other corner as being the same and then jump to the other corner as well, right? So this is a mechanism for us to limit where to search and where the movement areas are. Okay, so now that we're on our first frame, what I want to do now is do it in reverse. So sometimes you feel that the area, the pattern that you wanted to recognize is too small. By all means, go and increase it a little bit so that we can get a bit more. Like for example, a quarter of it is white, and then here there's a kind of a mid-gray value, right? So that has to be easier to match than giving it something like that. Okay. Sometimes it surprises me. Sometimes it really works better in a smaller area feature to match, but most of the time, if it doesn't work or it keeps drifting off more than you are happy with, the solution is to kind of readjust this and give it another size of the pattern to match. Okay, so now we're tracking forward, so I'm going to track forward a few frames to make sure that, and my eyes are on the magnifier. If you have a way to keep following the tracker, so the magnifier is one of the ways, the more easy way to follow where what the tracker is actually looking at, that pattern it's recognizing. So if you're happy, so that last frame it kind of skipped, so I'm going to use my magnifier to put that back in the center from the frame before. And using my number pad, and then from there on you'll see that maybe for the next keyframe it went off, so I can use excuse me, I can use this, kill this keyframe and all other keyframes, or I can just kill this keyframe. Oops, I'm sorry, undo that. So this one kills the whole all the tracker data from across the timeline, so you want to do just this one from this frame and to the rest of the frames. So and then you want to track, so by just stepping through you're not actually tracking. So what you want to do is actually track forward. For this one that went off, you want to track forward from the previous frame, and now you can see that it's kind of behaving, and then track forward a little bit more, and then when you're confident, just click track all the way to the end. So while it's tracking, you can cancel it if you see suddenly that there's a jump, right? Because once you detected that jump, you know that you're going to fix it, and all the other keys dependent on that, so you can clear out that frame and all the other frames and then fix that, and then continue and track forward. Okay, so that's the workflow. So right now it looks like everything's kind of alright, so gonna leave that for now and turn off that E. Okay, and add another track while I'm at frame 50. Okay, looks like I was at frame 45. Yeah, so undo that. I'm going to hit my home key. Okay, so that jumps me to the first frame. The end key, the hotkey, jumps me to that last frame. So the home key, and I'm gonna hit the add track, and I'm gonna move my tracker to, remember the anti-clockwise thing. So this, and then top right, and then top left. So now it's still the top right. Okay. Then a little bit more on the vertical axis, right? And just start tracking. So one frame before, So while in this frame I kill all the keyframes from the future. I'm just gonna put this guy back where it needs to be, and then keep going. And then once I spot something that's off, I'm gonna cancel this track. So I'm keeping my pointer there, but looks like nothing went terribly wrong. Actually, over here, if I do notice, right, so here it was still on the corner from 83, and you can see that there was a slide. Now it's no longer at the corner, it's shifted to the left. So from 83 to 96, so from 83, 84, I'm gonna kill all the points into the future, and I'm gonna cautiously track forward a little bit. Okay, so from here to here, you can see it kind of starts to slide to the left. So I'm advancing the frames and kind of keeping it there, and then now I'm going to continue to track forward. You can see that it's slide to the left a little bit, so I'm going to correct it ever so slightly at every point until I'm reaching like 93, 92, 93. Okay, thereafter I think it was alright, so I'm going to 95. Okay, so now it looks like it's okay. I'm gonna continue to track all the way to the end. Right, and then just a quick playthrough again. So let's say I'm happy with this. Okay, turn off the E, and while I'm on my first frame at the final track, somehow the Nuke turned those on again. I don't know why, but or I don't even know what exactly that means. So I'm gonna leave that for now and do our configuration. Excuse me. Our common whatever we did for the last 3 tracks, and then begin to track forward. So that jumped quite a lot. Putting that back. And then tracking forward again from that frame that I modified. Like I said, if every like 2 or 3 frames it kind of goes off every 2 or 3 frames, wanting to drift off, you might want to play around with the pattern configuration. Okay. So I'm just going to go for it for throughout the whole range. So you realize that on the right side you have a drop shadow, right? So that's kind of interfering with the accuracy of the. So on the left side you have a clean black and clean white, right? So on the right side you have drop shadows, and later on we'll try and get the drop shadow back onto the image, because what we're going to do is we paste an image on top of that. It's going to cover the frame. So more on that later. Okay, so now that we've done with all these 4 tracks, which is a good thing, now we have 4 trackers. Now what we need to do is we need to link and feed the positions of those tracks. You can see that for every frame those numbers are jumping. So Nuke is recording and remembering the positions of all these 4 tracks. Yeah, every frame. So now corner pin. So this corner pin has 2 parts. So one part is there's a, when I double click that, I see the corner pin. This from, it's gonna take 4 points of the image and go and pin it to our 4 tracker points. So this from is as important as 2. So sometimes if you want to leave a margin around the image, and I'm gonna and take those points offsetted from the real corners and put it there. That's what it's going to be. It's going to say that this point from offset from outside of that point is now going to match exactly where the 4 trackers are. Okay, so right now let's just take the actual corners and match it to those corners. Okay, so what's going to happen is this image is going to be squashed, because remember, these corners are, it's going to take this whole longish image and squashing it into this, but let's worry about that later. Let's do that first. Okay, so this is from telling us where these 4 corners are, and then there's a 2 which telling us where the other 4 corners are. Okay, so what we're gonna, so we've kind of settled the from. Okay, so these froms are, we already see these 4 corners, right? And we know that point 1, point 2, point 3, and tracker 4. So we go onto this. Okay, what we want to do now is, we know that this is called tracker 1. What I want to do is click on this guy, okay, and go into link to tracker 1. So there's only one tracker in our scene for now. When you go into more complex scenes, please be sure to name your tracker properly. So this, I'll probably name it like tracker frame, right? So you can call it tracker frame. Then when I double click this and I click on this, link to, you can see it's already called tracker frame, and then we know that this is track 1. When I click it, it knows to it knows the position of track 1, so just do this for all 4 tracks. So this guy links to tracker 2. Okay, so you can see to tracker 2, and that was the second track, so that we know we're in a good place. It went to the correct corresponding track, and then tracker 3, you can link it to tracker 3, and you know that that top right point gets driven by the tracker 3 point, and then tracker 4 link to tracker 4. Okay, so now that it's done this, we can kind of see the 4 points where we tracked, and it's kind of a vertical frame, isn't it? So let's go back to number 1, and you can see number 2, number 1, number 2. So we have to match them and merge them together. So let's do that. Merge, and then it's A over B. So this guy is the newcomer, and it's going to be on top of this guy, so A over B. So let's see it. Okay, so we don't want to be distracted by our trackers anymore, the overlays. So what I'm going to do is go to this tracker frame and click it, close. Okay, where is that? Okay, so you kind of don't see those trackers anymore, but also this 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 belongs to this corner pin. So if I don't want to see it anymore, I can click away this corner pin controls, and you don't see the overlays anymore. Okay, so let's see our handiwork. Play it around, play it a bit. So just play it. So you see that you managed to get a corner pin. Okay, so what you also realize is it's either because of the inaccuracy of tracking, or because of things that move around, and well, yes, I'll just say the inaccuracies of tracking, or the inaccuracy of our placement, of initial placement. So you will see that there are lines and around our image. Yeah, so what we want to do now is to kind of overshoot our image. Okay, what do we mean by that? We want to let's double click our corner pin. Okay, so this from, okay, we want to overcompensate from our image, so we want to kind of pull in our from points so that it eats into our image. Okay, so what you want to do now is, this is point 0, right? So you want it to be going down vertically, So that's Y, okay, X and Y. So what I want to do now is to shift this around. Can you see now when I move this area, it kind of move in vertically? Okay, so we can kind of compensate for this white line by moving an extra few pixels, eating into that image and pulling it, letting the inner side of the image being carried by the tracker instead of the all the way to the corner. Okay, so it's kind of an inverse matrix kind of thing, where it grabs the image by eating a little bit into the corner rather than out. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say for now. So number 2 here, it needs to go to the right a little bit, so that's going to be X and Y, right? So I'm going to do that. So that's shifting, and I'm shifting this X a little bit in to the left, okay, and that resulted in the image moving to the right a little bit. So again, so you gotta wrap your head around that. If your brain really hurts, just grab this around and just move it until you see it to be okay, right? So I'm just trying to tell you what's going on behind the scenes in broad terms also, but yeah, you don't need to know that to succeed as a compositor. Okay, so then I'm gonna push this a little bit so that the image goes in, fits into the frame a little bit, and the in-between doesn't show white lines, and that's all you need to do. Okay, so now check the image a little bit more. Okay, so I see some kind of shade sliding a little bit, especially here at this. Sometimes it may be the whatever's inside, the content of the picture that makes it looks like that it is sliding. So you have to be able to tell which is which. Okay, so for now, let's say I'm happy. So the next biggest glaring thing is that the image is squashed, right? So we can control that. So before we corner pin, so we can do a transform, yeah, and then when you transform, you just want to scale it in X, right? So now this is a single number that controls the scaling of the whole image. What we want to do now is to click this number 2 here, so then your scale becomes in individual in width and height. So what you want to do is to 1.5 for example, and then I want to pull this guy until she's not squashed anymore. Okay, so like that. So if you're seeing not used to seeing this, you can go to double click on the merge and kind of do a half mix, okay, so that we can see the frame but we can also see the lady. Okay, so we want to see her not squashed, so we want to compare the kind of her face and this one. Okay, so if you want, there's a way to compare that with the wipe. So what you want to do is to number 1, configure this to be viewer 1, configure this to be viewer number 2, and then over here you can see that read 2 and merge 1, so that's comparing between them. And then if you do a wipe, it's quite hard to see, because the space is different, so there's no way to do. But what about corner pin? Yeah, it's quite hard to see, so looks like it's gonna be, I'm gonna take that away, and it looks like it's going to be just by eye. Okay, so again, if you have a better workflow or links to better workflow, let me know. So right now they're kind of quite close in screen space in our framing for me to be able to make a judgment. Okay, so it looks like this second one, her face is still pretty skinny. You can see here it's a bit wider in the when it first comes in. Okay, so I'm gonna continue to 0.05 to push it. Okay, so it looks like it needs to be like that. Okay, so number one, oops. Okay, I think that looks close enough. In fact, I think the after our transform she becomes a bit, yeah, I think it's still a bit skinny. So double click on the transform, 1.5. Yeah, maybe this is looking a little bit better. Okay, and it's quite close already, so I'm gonna, again, this is by eyeball. If you have a better idea or a better workflow, please let me know. And the next thing that I want to say is that you see you leave a lot of sky. So now that we're in transform, let's step through the animation. So that's the water level going up, and that's her face. Okay, so I know that I'm kind of having too much sky here, so I'm going to do some transform in Y and push that thing up. And I'm going to just play it through again. And you can see kind of just nice, the water level looks to be rising in the picture, right? Which is kind of nice. And then she surfaces and comes up into the level of, okay, so I'm happy with that. Save your file. Oh shucks, I overwritten my prep, because it's still called prep, so please don't make the same mistake as me. Gonna save this guy out one level up, and I'm gonna call that 2.1 class. Right, so now that we have that, we are going to reformat this. Maybe we're gonna crop it, so you can see from here, right, we can see that the image is too big, so we're going to do a crop. And so because of the from and to, we can crop the image, or we can actually reformat the image as well if we wanted to. So it cropped it to the corners, where, because the corners kind of represent the entire image as well. So if I okay, the problem with that crop is that we have this black down here, so we might want to relax on that crop, but there's nothing, oops, there's nothing below. So I'm gonna, because we transformed it, okay, so maybe it's a bad idea to transform it after all. Okay, so we want that entire image, and then we crop it, and so it looks like we wanted to reclaim the top space, but looks like it didn't help us. Instead it introduced black bars. Okay, so I'm going to push back on my merge, double click that, and push it back up, and I'm going to quickly hit just the Q key to hide all my overlays and to see whether it still works. Okay, so what we did now, if we didn't have the crop, the image was stretched, okay, and then cropping kind of throw away things from, so this one, it was stretched from its original frame. Okay, so that frame represented the 4 frames of the painting. Okay, and then when we scaled it back up so that it looks okay with the painting, it kind of come out. So that's one of the ways we can tag an image and kind of paste it somewhere and still have it not bounded to the boundaries. Only when we actively put a crop in there, then we kind of constrain the image back into the original frame, if that makes sense. Okay, so after the 2D, it gets warped into that 4 corners, wherever that is, and then we merge that image back. Okay, so that's what we have at the moment. So the next thing is actually, before we merge it in, we might want to kind of color correct it, because what we see now is when we mouse over this, you can see the R, G, and B reading. So it's kind of a 0.7 something. When you see the brightest whiteout outside, it's kind of a 0.7 something. So that's directly under the sun, and the sky is still in the interior, so you want to compare the brightest thing inside the immediate surrounding. So that's 0.7, 0.6. So you don't want anything from the image, especially from a painting, to be competing with that in that color range. So you want to kind of create a grade node before the image comes in and gets merged. So kind of want to gain down a little bit. Okay, so while you're gaining down, well, the image kind of becomes a little bit yellow, so you want to also match the quality of the light. Okay, so if it's too yellow, you kind of want to push up the blue a little bit. So I want to push out that blue a little bit more. Okay, so it kind of looks like a bit more natural white. Looks like it's too much. Okay, you want to kind of match, right? So if the skin tone of the girl is a bit has more red, you might want to push red up a little bit more. Okay, so before and after, so very, very subtle, but now you can see that so before and after, you can see that the skin tone is much matching. Okay, if it's too red now, you have to bring up the green a little bit and the blue a little bit, so that still looks white. So before, after, and after. So I just undo and redo, so we can disable, bypass, and after, bypass, and after. So I still think that's a bit too much red, so I might push up the green a little bit more, and then the blue a little bit more. Well, that girl's face complexion now looks a little bit pale again, so it's kind of a balancing game, right? So I think that her complexion is secondary. I want to first and foremost, I want to kind of match the quality of the white color, so-called, to the surrounding. So again, I'm gonna hit Q to disable all to hide the overlay. Of course, you know that you can kill just click off and clear all the panels. You should be able to disable all the surroundings overlays. So that's not bad already, right? So now very quickly, we only have we are only left with 1 or 2 things to do, to fix. Okay, so now we want to kind of overlay the canvas texture. So I'm gonna just use one of the I think I'm going to use this gray one. I think for that 2 videos that I showed earlier, the 2 attempts, I think this is the only one that I haven't used. So I'm going to read in the gray canvas. Gray canvas, open that up, and I'm going to read that in, and you know that's going to be combined into and brought along with a corner pin. So there are 2 ways that I can do this. I think in my previous classes I did I copied and paste the corner pin, so I kind of, and then I merged them together and then merge them one after another, one after the other. So this time round I might merge them before. So I grade this one. So this graded this image, but then I'm gonna grade this separately, and then I'm gonna merge them, and then I'll merge both inside. Okay, so this is a merge in preparation. So that's B, and then this guy is A, and of course I have to grade that guy. Grade, and because you know that this is gonna end up scaled up like that, I think this is going to end up scaling up like that as well. Let's see how it looks, how they look together. Okay, so you see that this guy is going to bring back my Q, and this is I'm gonna clear everything first. Okay, and looking at this is 1300 by 866, and I'm going to look at the combined area, the 1080. So maybe I will, because I know that this is going to be 1080, I'm going to conform the format, reformat this guy to 19201080, and I'm going to say either I use the height and touch the top and bottom, or I use the width. So it looks like the width is a better choice. So let's see them together like that. Okay, so it looks like I still need to replicate this corner pin actually, but actually I can kind of grade them, yeah, put them together in that 19201080 space. Right, so now they're kind of matching, and then I scaled this and I cropped this, so I might need to do the same thing for the pattern, but not yet. Then after I merge them, then I do that corner pin transform. Let's see that. Okay, so now we see that it is happening, and it is working. So this over, I might want to use a multiply or something. Might not work. Okay, so I'm going to use over, and if it's too strong in color, I might want to bring that down a little bit, just so that we see. Okay, and then we have a grade. We can do a grade node, and from the grade node I can kind of colorize. I can gain it, or I can so if I bring down the levels like that, my merge might want to bring back up that level. Okay, so don't want to spend too much time on this, as long as we can see some kind of surface texture. And then because you know that this corner pin is bringing anything before bringing along and clipping it to the picture, like pinning it to the picture, so that's going to work for this texture as well. So let's see it. So you can see that the texture's been taken along for the ride. So if I find that the texture also appears squeezed, I will put another transform here to unsqueeze the image, just like I did the lady, the other video footage, right? Okay, so now the very last thing for us to do is to take care of the problem of the shadow. So right now the picture, right, the image is kind of on top and kind of level. You can see it kind of flushed together with the frame. But if you see, if you take a look at that frame, you see that there's some kind of drop shadow from here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we want to extract that that drop shadow and kind of put it back onto the image. So how do we do that? Okay, so what we have here with the corner pin is that an image gets pinned along this, right? So what I want to do is I want to get this corner pin information and write on it. I want to be able to extract this area. So I'm gonna get this white area, right, kind of as an alpha, right? And with this I can grab this area, I can get the white area, and then I can kind of multiply, grade this one a little bit so this white becomes really white, and then I can multiply this guy in, okay, and we'll get this this strip of shaded area back onto our image. So let's try and do that. So to replicate it, this image gets carried along and fill this area, right? So we want another rectangle to fill this area, and we want to use that as a matte, as an alpha, to matte out this RGB of our original image. So let's gonna do a reformat. I'm gonna do a constant, okay? Constant image, and this image is gonna be white in color, I think. Should we? Yeah, let's just put it as white, and then and the format of this image is 192.0.1.0.80, and I'll copy this corner pin, and whatever's copied is also taking the link from the trackers, which is a good thing. Okay, and take from these trackers, and let's see, and let's merge it and see what's happening. Okay, so merge and A over B, and let's see it. Okay, so now you see, before we merge, and then after, okay, so we managed to get a rectangle and to move along, right, in place of that image. So what do we want this rectangle for? So we want to see, we want this rectangle to mask our footage. Okay, so this rectangle, we want it to be matte against our image, and this image we're going to grade it as black. Okay, so I'm going to grade and multiply and gain it down to 0, right? So actually what we have here now is a moving matte. So this is just for you to visualize what's happening. Okay, so what we want now is right, we want this whole image to be the mask channel to mask out this guy. Okay, so So this will shuffle in this one to be the mask. Shuffle copy. So number 2. So RGB, and you want to take the red, green, and blue from the R, and from the alpha you want to take the red. So that will look like this. Okay, so if you want to have a quick preview of what that looks like, just that piece, right? So I'm sure I'm not doing this exactly the same as I did with the other class, but you can do a pre-multiply. Okay, so when you do that, you can see that our video footage is being cut out from. So this is the alpha that cuts the video footage. So if you really want to see what's happening, I can take this pre-multiply and merge it with the incoming. So I can and if you take this pre-mult and kind of grade it a little bit and kind of push a red on it, you can see it's only that piece just outside that frame. Okay, so that's a pre-mult, and I kind of color it. So the pre-mult is up to the black frame plus a little bit of this the drop shadow, which came from the original image, right? So 1, 2, so that we kind of cut out that piece, and every frame it is moving, carried along by that constant, and being carried along by the corner pin, right? So that's the viewing it after the grading. Okay, so that's just to help us visualize what we've done. Okay, so that's a kind of a copy of the image. So what's this copy? What can this copy do for us? Okay, I'm gonna put that guy a little bit further. So that copy is gonna, so remember we kind of isolated that area and matted out. So that's gonna help us to kind of drop that shadow back onto our corner pinned image. Okay, so that's gonna happen before everything gets merged in. Looks like cannot, because this corner pinning is going it's not the same format as this. So what we can do is let them merge. Okay, and then we take this and multiply it. So all these can go into the right side, and that's a grading. Okay, we got that. So after that, and here we got the exact same position, right? So after the overlay, then we overlay another one, we overlay that piece back onto the image. So it looks like we achieved nothing. We need to mask this with the alpha of this guy, right? So you see we put back that piece of mask back on exactly where that picture is. So what I did there was to use the mask. So right now this guy, when we put it over, at some point we double the value. So what we want to do now is to use a mask to only do that operation. This is the alpha, right where the alpha has. Okay, so it will take the alpha mask into consideration. So what we now want to do is to use this as a multiply. So once we do that multiply, you see that only that area was affected because of the mask. Okay, then the next thing is everything became dark. That's because in a multiply operation, white is passed through. So what happens is it also darkened because this white is really not white enough. If you see the RGB is kind of 0.47, that's half the brightness. So what I want to do now is to kind of pump it back up to push the brightness back up to close to 1.0, so then it doesn't affect the brightness of our image when we multiply it. So we really want to just multiply the darker parts. So what I want to do now is to grade this, okay, and I want to only affect RGB, which is good. Okay, we don't want to affect the alpha, and we want to push up, right, and push up the grade until this white part is 1 point something. Okay, so push it back down again. So it's 1.01, 1.08. It's not too bad. Push it back down again. So 0.8, 0.9, 1.0. That's also not bad. So right, one of the quick tricks that you can do is quite close to 1, but you can see that this blue is like 0.9, fluctuating between 1.0 something to 0.9. We can do a quick clip and white clip, right, and you can see that once it goes beyond 1, those areas, it kind of stays at 1 because we clamp it. We clamp the brightest and we also clamp the darkest, so we still see this shadow. So anything at 1 point, close to 1.0 in a multiply, because everything multiplied by 1 retains the original color. Okay, you see this kind of reddish to bluish. That's because even in this grade you can see that the blue is dominant. Okay, and I'm going to desaturate, so there's a color correct that enables us to do a master desaturate. Okay, so before that you had color, and then remember what we're doing it to this guy, okay, and not to everything else. So you want to do this, and it reflects on this, on everything, so everything was desaturated. So now when you see this multiply, when I turn off desaturate, you can see it blue, but when I desaturate it, you'll see it kind of return to whatever it was, that color. So let's see, before and after, before and after. So now the kind of the color tone is the same, but you can see the darkness went down a little bit, and that's the shading you get from the original image. Okay, that's the kind of the shadow from the window, the shadow from this side, and then right now you also see still see a little bit of that line here. So what you still want to do is to go in and push for, can try to see whether if it's the corner pins problem. So I'm seeing it on the here, so I might want to push this out a little bit. Okay, 2. Okay, looks like just a little bit might do, and over here I see a little bit, so I might want to push it back out, push it. Now I'm doing it to the tracker number 1, which is the bottom left. Okay, and that one. Then now this is tracker 3. Right. Give it some margin. This is tracker 4. right? So then you get better, and you get the drop shadow. Then you also can now, as a final thing to do, right? Of course, you want to match whether there are grains going along as part of the original footage, and then match grain. And then you also want to maybe just soften this thing a little bit, the image in the canvas, maybe. Okay, and so we build up this thing already. As the last thing, you want to kind of reformat and crop it a bit, right? So reformat it to HD. So you do see it reformat to HD, and now you want to check the framing, right? So as a part of the reformat, if you preserve the bounding box, you can see that how we are framing this thing. We don't want to cut off that girl at the poor girl at the forehead, so always we can do a transform to control where that reformat happens. Right now it's just smack in the center and leave equal amounts on the top and the bottom. So what you want to do is to kind of push it up or push it down, right? At the beginning you definitely want to see the girl, right? Something like that, with a bit of room on the head to be nice to her. Okay, and then you kind of step through and see that she's holding the painting up, and then you see the girl, the eye level in the picture, it's still not bad, and then she surfaces and the water level rises to cover the full frame, which is also correct. Something I don't like, I kind of don't like the fact that we see the bottom of the painting. It makes me want to see kind of the top of the painting, so I'm gonna push it down a little bit, and maybe kind of, we also don't want the painting to be resting on the frame, okay, so that dispels the illusion of the cinema, where we kind of are made aware that there's a frame, the invisible frame of the invisible observer. Okay, so we want to kind of push it a little bit like that in the middle of that frame, and maybe we can just see just a little bit of that top one coming in, maybe. Okay, so rewind that and play. So we have our, so when we're done with that, and we don't want to see the bounding box anymore, we don't preserve the bounding box, and that crops out for good whatever that incoming format was. Okay, so we know that this corner pinning needed that 4 corners, so that's the reason why we're not so eager to want to crop to the final format to begin with. Okay, and then now that we have that the corner pin already, and then we are ready to kind of reformat and crop off. Okay, so that's what it is, and we'll write it out right now. So if you haven't saved your file at this point, please save it. Yeah. So thank you for watching, and I will see you the next time.